My name is Lucien Vale Mercer. I am 34 years old and Omega. For 12 years I have been a teacher. The tea was cold, it always was. I drank it anyway because drinking it cold meant I had been working long enough for it to cool. Tuesday night, 11:40. A stack of essays on the small wooden desk I had carried from my first apartment to my second to my third. The same desk, the same habit, the same quiet room. I did not know sitting there that my life was about to be interrupted. But I knew something was wrong the moment my phone rang at 11:45 at night. Only 2 people called that late. My mother when she wanted something. My brother Cashin when he needed an audience. It was Cashin. Lucien, are you free next weekend? I had been free every weekend for 12 years. He knew that. I can be, I said. Good, I need you at the Thorne Charity Summit. Elias Thorne's company is launching an educational initiative. The Mercer family is being positioned as a key partner. I waited. There was always more. They want you there, he said. The foundation directors, they want a teacher present. Someone who can speak to the education sector with credibility. You've been teaching long enough. It looks good. It looks good. Not you are valued, not we are proud. It looks good. I said yes. I always said yes. The call lasted 3 more minutes. He talked about the venue, about the donors, about the schedule. He did not ask about my classroom. He did not ask how I was. Let me take you back, not to the summit, to before it. To understand what I carried into that room, you need to understand what I had been carrying for years. I started teaching at 22, fresh out of university, a degree in educational policy that my family called a hobby. I took a position at a public school in the Eastern District, underfunded, overcrowded, the kind of school people talked about in statistics, but never visited. My mother cried when I told her, not with pride. A teacher, she said, like it was a diagnosis. I stayed. Through the first year when I cried in the supply closet, through the 3rd year when I learned to budget my own salary for paper and pencils, through the 6th year when I realized I was not saving anyone, I was just teaching. And that was enough. I became good at being invisible. It was a skill I learned before I could remember learning it. At family dinners, I was the quiet one. At events, I was the one who refilled glasses. In photographs, I was the edge that got cropped out. I learned to move through rooms without disturbing the air. There was a comfort in it. If no one saw you, no one could use you. I had been wrong. The call from my mother came on Thursday. Lucien, we need to discuss your appearance at the summit. I have a suit, I said. Not the suit, the presentation, the behavior. This is not your classroom, Lucien. You will be in rooms with people who matter. I held the phone away from my ear. I looked at the essays on my desk. One of them, a student named Mira, an Omega girl who had transferred 3 times in 2 years, had written about wanting to be a teacher. She had spelled everything wrong. She had meant every word. Are you listening? My mother said. Yes. Good. First, you do not speak unless spoken to. The donors want to see the Mercer family as a unified front. Cashin will do the talking. You will be present, supportive, smiling, supportive, smiling. Second, if anyone asks about your work, you say rewarding, nothing else. Do not talk about the budget cuts. Do not talk about the students. Do not make them uncomfortable with reality. Do not make them uncomfortable with the truth. Third, there is an alpha named Elias Thorne. He is the reason for the foundation. He admires the Mercer family's commitment to education. She paused. He thinks Cashin is passionate about reform. I understood. Cashin does not know anything about educational reform, I said. That is not the point. The point is that Cashin can be the face, you can be the substance. That is how these things work. That is how these things work. I noticed. I always noticed. Noticing and saying something are not the same skill. If you have ever stood in a room and realized the math no longer added up, you already know what I understood when my mother finished speaking. Yes, I said. I understand. I did not say anything else. I hung up. I went back to the essays. I corrected Mira's spelling gently, carefully, the way someone had once corrected mine, back when I still believed being good at something meant someone would see. The summit was held at the Thorne Tower downtown, glass and steel, a lobby that smelled like orchids and money. I arrived early because that was what you did when you had been raised to be invisible. You arrived early, so no one had to wait for you. Cashin was already there. He was doing what Cashin did best, standing in a room full of important people and looking like he belonged there. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than my monthly rent. His hair was perfect. His smile was measured. He moved through the crowd like a man who had never been told he was embarrassing. He saw me and raised his chin. A greeting. Not a warm one. Lucien, good, you're here. Remember what Mother said? I remember. Good, stick to the edges. I'll call you when you're needed. I'll call you when you're needed. I found a corner near the east wall. I watched. The room filled. Donors, journalists, foundation directors. The kind of people who talked about underserved communities without ever having sat in an underserved classroom. I recognized some of them from the news. None of them recognized me. And then Elias Thorne walked in. I had seen photographs. They did not prepare me. He was tall, not imposing, contained. He moved like someone who had learned to carry weight early. Dark hair, silver at the temples, a face that was more careful than handsome. He stopped at the entrance for half a second, scanning the room. Not looking for anyone in particular, looking at everyone. That scent, I registered it before I registered him. Warm, wood and something sharp like cedar after rain. I had never smelled him before. I had also never been unable to stop noticing a scent. That was the thing about being an Omega in a room full of alphas. You learn to control your reactions. You learn to breathe evenly. You learn to feel the pull and not move toward it. I learned all of that. I held perfectly still. Elias moved through the room the way Cashin wished he could, not performing, just present. He stopped at tables. He talked to staff members. He bent slightly to hear a young woman in event livery, and he listened to whatever she said with the same attention he gave the foundation director 5 minutes later. I watched him. He did not watch me. The panel began. Cashin spoke. He talked about the Mercer family's long commitment to education. He talked about access and opportunity and the future. He used words that sounded right if you were not paying attention. I was paying attention. He used my words, phrases from the reform proposal I had written 4 years ago. Sequential funding restructuring. Teacher-led curriculum autonomy. Systemic de-escalation of administrative overhead. He did not know where they came from. He said them like lines he had memorized for an audition. He had not read what was inside. I had read nothing else. Elias Thorne sat in the front row. He was watching Cashin. But he was watching differently than the others, not with admiration, with something quieter. He was waiting for Cashin to say something specific, something that would tell Elias whether Cashin understood what he was saying. Cashin never said it. I knew exactly what Elias was waiting for. It was buried in section 4 of the proposal, in a paragraph I had rewritten 17 times before I got it right. A question, not an answer, a question that the proposal asked the reader to sit with. What do we owe the child we will never meet? Cashin did not ask it. I saw Elias's face shift, something closed slightly, not disappointment, recognition. He had confirmed something he already suspected. After the panel, during the networking hour, I stayed in my corner. I did not need to be in the conversation. I just needed to be in the room. A server passed with a tray of water glasses. I took one. I thanked her by name. Her tag said Daria. She blinked, surprised, then smiled. Thank you, she said. Most people don't read the tag. I read the tag, I said. She moved on. I stayed. From across the room, someone was watching me. I looked up. Elias Thorne stood near the west pillar, a glass in his hand, his eyes on the corner where I stood. He was not looking at Cashin, he was looking at me. I held his gaze for a count of 3, then I looked down at my water. I did not look up again for several minutes. When I did, he was gone. The summit ended. I went home. I sat at my desk. The tea was cold. I drank it anyway. The phone rang. My mother. Lucien, you did well. You were appropriately invisible. Thank you, I said. Elias Thorne is having a private dinner with Cashin next week to discuss the partnership. You are not invited, but you may be needed for a follow-up meeting. I will let you know. You may be needed. Yes, I said. I understand. I hung up. I looked at the essays. Mira's was on top. Her spelling was still bad. Her passion was still real. I picked up my pen. I started to grade. But to understand what happened next, what I did not know yet, what they did not know yet, you need to understand one more thing. 4 years ago, I published an educational reform proposal under a pseudonym. I did not tell anyone. Not my family, not my colleagues, no one. Elias Thorne had been looking for the author for 2 years. He did not know he had been standing in the same room with him. He would find out soon. The private dinner never happened. Cashin called me on Wednesday evening, his voice carrying the particular tightness that meant something had gone wrong. Thorne postponed. He says he wants to meet with educational stakeholders first. The foundation is doing a listening tour. I put down the essay I was grading. A listening tour. Yes, he's visiting schools. 3 next week. Yours is on the list. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the kind of silence that carried everything neither of us was willing to say. Interesting, I said. Lucien, you cannot speak to him about the proposal. You understand that. The proposal is off limits. Cashin needs to be the one who understands the framework. You are just the teacher he consulted. Do you understand? Just the teacher he consulted. Yes, I said. I understand. He arrived on Tuesday. I knew he was coming before I saw him. The scent reached me first, cedar and rain, warm and sharp, and I stopped mid-sentence in front of my classroom. My students looked at me. I looked at the door. He's here, I said. They did not know who he was. I did not know either. Not really. Elias Thorne entered my classroom without announcement. That was the first thing I noticed. He did not ask for a welcome. He did not want a tour from administration. He wanted to see the room as it was. He stood at the back. He watched. I taught. That was what I did. I taught. We were reading The House on Mango Street, the chapter about Esperanza realizing that writing is the thing that will set her free. My students were restless. It was Thursday afternoon. They could smell the weekend. Tell me why she wants to leave, I said. But also tell me why she wants to stay. A beta boy in the 3rd row raised his hand, because leaving means losing something, even if what you are leaving is not good. Even if it hurts, leaving still hurts. I nodded. I did not look at the back of the room. Mira raised her hand. She had been reading ahead, as she always did. She wants to leave so she can write about it. She cannot write about it if she stays inside it. Distance, I said. Perspective, you need to get outside something to see its shape. Elias Thorne took a note. I saw him do it. Small notebook, black cover. He wrote something down. He had not been watching my lesson. He had been watching my students. That was the second thing I noticed. After the class ended, after the students filed out, after the room emptied of noise and movement, he stepped forward. Mr. Mercer. Mr. Thorne. He did not correct me. He did not ask me to call him Elias. He just stood there in the space between the first row of desks and the chalkboard and looked at me. Your students speak like thinkers, he said. They have always been thinkers. I just gave them the vocabulary. You give them more than that. It was not a compliment. It was an observation. I recognized the difference because I had spent my life receiving the first and rarely the second. The Mercer family was proud to have you as part of their educational outreach, he said. Cashin speaks highly of your work. I said nothing. He waited. He speaks generally, I said finally. He does not know my work. Elias's face did not change, but something in his posture shifted, a fraction of movement, a rebalancing. What does your work look like? He asked. I did not answer immediately. I walked to my desk. I picked up a stack of essays. I held them out. This, I said. He took them. He read the top one, Mira's essay about becoming a teacher, about wanting to stay in the district so she could be the teacher she had never had. Her spelling was better now. I had been working with her after class. He read for a long time. Her handwriting is terrible, he said. Yes, but the sentences are good. Yes, he looked up. You corrected her spelling mistakes. But you wrote nothing else, no grade, no rubric. I do not grade these ones, I said. I read them. Why? Because if I grade them, she writes for the grade. If I read them, she writes for herself. He looked at me for a long moment. I looked back. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being useful to people who do not see you. If you have felt it, you do not need me to explain it. I had been useful to Cashin for years, to my mother, to my family, To every person who needed a quiet Omega to stand in the background and make them look better, I had never been seen. Elias Thorne was looking at me like he was trying to read something I had not yet written. The listening tour continued. 3 schools in 3 days. I was not at the others, but I heard about them. Elias asked questions, specific ones. He asked teachers about budget allocation. He asked students about what they wished they could learn. He asked a custodian about the heating system and took notes when the man told him the East Wing was cold in winter. At the final school, he asked the principal about the reform proposal. "Have you read it?" Elias asked. "Parts of it. The funding model is radical. But it works. The schools that implemented parts of it saw improvement within 2 semesters. We cannot afford the full structure." "Who wrote it?" The principal shook his head. "We do not know. Pseudonym. Some say a former policy advisor. Some say a teacher. Whoever it was, they understood classrooms." Elias nodded. He said nothing else, but I heard about it because Cashin called me that night, furious. He asked about the proposal, at a school, not at a boardroom, at a school. I heard. He is looking for the author. If anyone finds out, you have to tell them you consulted, that you were part of the research team, nothing more. Do you understand? Nothing more. Yes, I said. I understand. I hung up. I sat at my desk. The tea was cold. I drank it anyway. Friday, the last day of the tour. Elias came back to my school. I did not know why. He was not on the schedule. He appeared during my prep hour, standing at the door of my empty classroom, holding a file. "Mr. Mercer, Mr. Thorne, I want to show you something." He walked to my desk. He opened the file. Inside was a printout of the reform proposal, the original version, before it was published, before it was shaped into something palatable for government funding. The margins were filled with handwriting. My handwriting. He had found it. I did not know how, but he had found it. "I should tell you that I have been looking for the person who wrote this for 2 years, he said. His voice was level, careful. "I should tell you that I found traces of the author in a university archive, old drafts, early versions, a spreadsheet of funding projections that someone had annotated by hand." He paused. "I should tell you that I recognized your handwriting from the notes on your student essays." I did not speak. "Cashin Mercer does not know you wrote this," he said. "Does he?" "No," I said. "Your mother does not know." "No. The foundation that bears my name was inspired by this document. The partnership with your family was built on the assumption that they understood the philosophy behind it. They do not understand it." "No," I said again. "They understand the parts that are useful to them." He looked at me, really looked, not at the teacher, not at the Omega. Not at the quiet son of a family that had made him invisible. At me. When you have spent your life being invisible, being seen is not a relief. It is a risk. If you know what that costs, you know why I hesitated. "Why did you use a pseudonym?" he asked. "Because I needed the work to be judged on its content, not on my designation, not on my family's reputation. Not on anything other than whether it was right." Was it right? It changed funding models, it improved schools, it helped students I will never meet. That does not answer the question. I met his eyes. Yes, it was right. I spent 3 years making sure it was right before I released it. He closed the file. "You should have been at that summit as the keynote speaker," he said. "Not standing in a corner." "Thank you," I said. It was all I could say. He stayed for another moment, then he left. I sat down at my desk. The room was quiet. The file was still there, open to a page of my handwriting, 3 years of work reduced to marginalia. If you have ever known something about yourself that you were afraid to say out loud, not because it was shameful, but because saying it would make it real in a way you were not ready for, you know what I felt when I opened that file. He knew who I was, and he had not asked me to be useful. The weekend passed. I graded, I prepared. I did not tell anyone about Elias's visit. Monday morning, Cashin called. "Thorne wants another meeting, a private one." "With you?" "With me. He wants to discuss educational implementation strategies. He specifically asked for you by name." I could hear the edge in his voice, the confusion, the beginning of suspicion. "I will tell you what to say," Cashin said. "I will prepare talking points. You will not deviate from them." "No," I said. "Excuse me." No, I will not follow your talking points. I will speak to Elias Thorne about education. I will speak to him about what I know, and I will not pretend to be someone's assistant while he does it. The silence was long. You cannot. I can. I have been quiet for 12 years, Cashin. I will not be quiet anymore. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I put them flat on my desk. The wood was old and warm. It had been there through every apartment, every late night, every cold cup of tea. I looked at the essays. I looked at the reform file still open on my desk. The tea was cold. I did not drink it. I let it sit. The meeting was Thursday evening. Elias's office. The Thorne Tower, 23rd floor. A room with windows that looked out over the city and the river and the lights of the East District where my school was hidden somewhere in the dark. I arrived early. I always arrived early. He was already there. He stood near the window, looking out. He turned when I entered. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking. He gestured to a chair. I sat. He sat across from me, not behind his desk. The space between us was empty. I have a proposal, he said. Not the Foundation's proposal. Mine. I waited. I want you to work with me directly as an advisor, not as a Mercer family representative. As yourself, the reform proposal, I want to implement it, the full version, not the diluted one that passed through legislative committees, the version you wrote. That would require significant funding, I said. I have significant funding. That would require the Mercer partnership to be restructured. They will not agree to lose control of the narrative. He was quiet for a moment. I know, he said. I also know that your family has been using you as a prop for their public image. I know that Cashin has been presenting himself as the intellectual force behind a project he did not write. I know your mother instructed you to be invisible. He had been paying attention, not to the panel, not to the performance, to the quiet man standing in the corner. What are you asking me to do? I said. I am asking you to stop being invisible. If you have ever stood in a room and understood in a single second that everything you thought you knew about a person was true and also not enough, you know exactly what I felt when he said those words. I was not invisible because I wanted to be. I was invisible because it was the only protection I had. Your family will not forgive you, he said, if you choose this. I know. There will be consequences. I know. I looked at my hands. They were still. I had been invisible for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Tell me about the implementation strategy, I said. He smiled. It was small. It was real. He began to talk. We talked for hours, not about the summit, not about the partnership, not about my family or the scandal that was building beneath the surface of every conversation. We talked about schools, about students, about the child we would never meet. The scent reached me first. It had been present all evening, warm, sharp, steady, but now it was closer. He had moved to the window and I had followed, and we were standing side by side, looking at the same dark city. Your proposal changed how I understand education, he said, but meeting you changed how I understand integrity. I did not know what to say. I said nothing. I have spent years looking for the person who wrote that document, he said. I thought I would find a policy expert, a reform strategist, a committee. He turned to look at me. I found a teacher who stayed. The silence between us was not empty. It was full of everything that had not yet been said, everything that might be said. Everything that we were both too careful to speak aloud. The bond pull was there. I had felt it since the first moment I smelled him in the summit lobby. I had not acted on it. I had not even admitted it to myself, but it was there and he knew it. I stepped back, not because I wanted to, because I needed space to think. I need to go, I said. Lucien, I stopped. I will not push you. But I will be here when you are ready. I did not look back. I walked to the door. I had not decided yet what I would say if he asked. There are things you learn about a person that you cannot unlearn, and what I learned about my family that week I am still carrying. The call came Friday morning, my mother. Lucien, I hear you met with Elias Thorne alone. Yes, without Cashin. Yes, you are to come home this weekend. We need to discuss your future role in the family. Your future role in the family, not our future together, not we need to talk about how you are feeling, your future role. Yes, I said, I will come. I hung up. I looked at my desk. The tea was cold. I made a new cup. I let it cool. I did not drink it. I was learning to let things change. 3 weeks later, a different city, the same problem. The gala was held at the Mercer estate, my family's ancestral home, a sprawling limestone manor on the north edge of the city. I had grown up in those rooms. I had learned to be invisible in those hallways. I had spent every holiday dinner at that long mahogany table, silent, watching, waiting to be dismissed. Tonight, I would not be silent. I arrived alone. I had not told anyone what I planned to say. I had not even fully admitted it to myself until I stepped out of the car and smelled the wet earth of the garden where I had hidden as a child, reading books about people who mattered. The estate was transformed. White lights in the trees. A tent over the terrace. Caterers in perfect black and white moving through the crowd with trays of champagne. The foundation's logo projected onto the east wing wall, Elias's foundation, my reform proposal, the Mercer name underneath it. They had already printed the materials. They had already announced the partnership. They had already assumed my compliance. I walked inside. The foyer was full of people I recognized. Donors, journalists, politicians. The same faces that had attended every charity event for the last decade. They looked at me and saw what they had always seen, the quiet Omega son, the teacher, the one who stood in corners and refilled glasses. I did not stand in a corner tonight. I walked through the crowd. I nodded at people who did not know my name. I accepted a glass of water from a server whose name I asked. Maria. She was studying nursing. She worked 3 jobs. She had not slept well in weeks. I remembered her name. Elias was across the room. He saw me the moment I entered. I felt his gaze before I met his eyes. He was standing near the podium, speaking to a foundation director, but his attention had shifted. He knew something was going to happen tonight. He did not know what. Neither did I, not fully, but I knew I would not leave this room the same person who entered it. My mother found me first. She was wearing deep blue, the color she wore when she wanted to be taken seriously. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was measured. She touched my arm with the light pressure of a woman who had never held me properly. "Lucien, you came. I said I would." "Good. Remember your role tonight. The announcement is in 1 hour. Cashin will speak first, then Elias. Then you will be introduced as the educational consultant for the partnership. You will say 3 sentences. We have prepared them." She handed me a card. I looked at it. "I am honored to support the Mercer family's commitment to educational access. This partnership will change lives." 3 sentences, none of them true in the way they needed to be. "Thank you," I said. I put the card in my pocket. She nodded and walked away. She did not ask how I was. She did not ask about my students. She did not ask about anything that mattered. Cashin found me 10 minutes later. He was nervous. I could smell it, the sharp edge of adrenaline beneath his cologne. He was performing confidence, but his hands were moving too much. "Lucien, good, you have the card." "Yes, read it exactly as written, nothing else, no improvisation." "This is the most important moment of the campaign. The campaign, not our family, not our future, the campaign." "Cashin," I said, "why did you ask me to be here?" He blinked. "What? At the beginning, why did you ask me to come to the summit? Because we needed a teacher for credibility. You needed my credibility." "Yes, that is what I just said." I looked at him. "My brother. The one who had been the golden child, the successful one, the one whose photograph hung in my mother's office while mine was absent. He had never been cruel to me. He had simply never seen me." "I understand," I said, and I did. For the first time, I understood completely. The hour passed. I stood near the east windows, watching the garden where I had hidden as a child. The lights had been strung through the trees. They looked like stars caught in the branches. Elias found me there. He did not speak at first. He stood beside me, looking at the same garden. "I used to hide in that oak," I said. "When the dinners got too loud, I would climb up to the second branch and read until someone came to find me." "Did they find you?" "No, I always came down on my own, eventually." He was quiet. "I do not know what you are planning to do tonight," he said, "but I want you to know, whatever it is, I am on your side." I turned to look at him. The garden lights reflected in his eyes. His scent was steady, warm, present. "You do not know what I am going to do." No, it might ruin the partnership. I know. It might ruin your foundation's relationship with my family. I know, and you are still on my side. Lucien. His voice was low. I have been on your side since the moment I watched you thank a server by name. I have been on your side since I read your proposal and realized someone in the world understood education the way I had always hoped someone would. I have been on your side since I saw you stand in a room full of people who did not see you and keep standing anyway. I did not know what to say. So I said nothing. He did not need me to say anything. The announcement began. Cashin stepped to the podium. He was polished. He was practiced. He spoke about the Mercer family's long commitment to education, about the new partnership with Thorne Foundation, about the visionary leadership that had brought them together. He used my words again. Sequential funding restructuring. Teacher-led curriculum autonomy. He said them with the same lack of understanding he had shown at the summit. He introduced Elias. Elias spoke next. He was brief. He spoke about the reform proposal that had inspired the foundation. He spoke about the anonymous author whose work had changed how he understood educational systems. I have spent 2 years looking for that author, he said. I thought I would find someone in a policy office. Someone with a team of researchers. Someone whose job it was to think about these things. He paused. I found a teacher. The room shifted. People looked at each other. They did not understand yet. Tonight, Elias said, I want the Mercer family to introduce the person who made this partnership possible, the person whose work built the foundation of everything we are trying to do. He stepped back. My mother gestured to me. Cashin nodded. The podium was empty. I walked to it. When you have spent your life being invisible, being seen is not a relief, it is a risk. I stood at the podium. The lights were bright. The room was full of people who had never learned my name. I took the card from my pocket. The 3 sentences my mother had written. I looked at them, then I set the card down. Thank you for being here tonight, I said. My name is Lucien Vale Mercer. I am a teacher. I have been teaching for 12 years, and I wrote the educational reform proposal that Elias Thorne mentioned tonight. The room went quiet, not the kind of quiet that follows a surprise, the kind of quiet that follows a door closing. I wrote it under a pseudonym. I did not tell my family. I did not tell my colleagues. I did not tell anyone, because I needed the work to be judged on its content, not on my designation, not on my family's connections, not on whether I was useful to someone else's agenda. I looked at my mother. Her face was frozen. 3 weeks ago, I was invited to the Thorne Charity Summit. I was not invited as a Mercer family member. I was invited because my family needed a teacher to lend credibility to their partnership. They needed someone who had actually worked in schools, who had actually taught students, who had actually read the reform proposal they were planning to use. I have been invisible to my family for 12 years. My career was an embarrassment until it became useful. My work was ignored until it could be leveraged. My value was measured by what I could provide, not by who I am. I paused. I had not been ready. I still was not, but I spoke anyway. I am not going to endorse this partnership, not because it is a bad idea, but because it is built on a lie. The Mercer family did not create this reform. They did not design it. They did not fight for it. I did, alone, in my apartment, with cold tea and late nights and no one telling me it mattered. If this partnership continues, it will continue without my endorsement, and without my approval, the licensing rights and legal framework connected to the reform project cannot be transferred. The entire initiative will collapse. The silence was complete. I saw Cashin's face, shock, then anger, then something I had never seen from him before, fear. Lucien, my mother said, her voice was sharp, do not do this. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had never seen me. I looked at the room full of people who had come to watch a performance. I am not doing this to hurt you, I said. I am doing this because I spent 12 years protecting vulnerable students and teachers. I did it when it cost me everything. I did it when no one was watching. I did it because it was right. And I will not let that work be used to make people who never cared about it look good. I stepped back from the podium. The room did not move. Elias was the first to move. He walked to the podium. He did not look at my family. He looked at me. Lucien Vale Mercer wrote the reform proposal that inspired my foundation, he said. I have spent 2 years looking for the person who understood education the way I had always hoped someone would. I found him. He was standing in a corner at my summit, thanking a server by name. He turned to the room. The partnership with the Mercer family is terminated. The foundation will restructure. From this moment forward, the Thorne Education Initiative will be co-directed by Lucien Vale Mercer, not as a consultant, not as a symbol, but as the person whose vision built it. My mother stood. She walked out of the room. Cashin followed. The door closed behind them. I stood at the front of the room, alone in the silence, with Elias Thorne looking at me as if I was the only person in the world. The garden was cold. I had walked outside without meaning to. The oak tree was still there. The lights in the branches swayed slightly in the wind. I heard footsteps behind me. You did not have to do that, Elias said. Yes, I did. You could have let them have the partnership. You could have been behind the scenes. You could have been invisible, safe, and still made the reform happen. And would you have respected me? He was quiet. Would you have respected me, I said, if I had let them use my work while I stood in the background and smiled? No, he said. I did not think so. He stepped closer. His scent reached me, warm, steady, present. I did not step back. Lucien, I have been looking for someone like you my entire life, and I did not realize it until I watched you correct a student's spelling without telling her how good she was. I looked at him. I am not ready, I said, for I do not know what this is, but I am not ready. I know. But I am not going to disappear. I know that too. The week that followed was not easy. My mother called 7 times. I did not answer. Cashin sent texts that started angry and became pleading and eventually stopped. The Mercer name was removed from the foundation materials. Journalists called. I did not respond. I stayed in my apartment. I graded essays. I drank tea. And every evening, Elias came to my classroom. He did not bring grand gestures. He brought coffee. He brought questions. He brought a quiet attention that I did not know how to accept. One evening, I was grading late. The building was empty. The hallways were dark. I heard footsteps. He appeared at the door. You are still here, he said. You are also still here. I brought food. He set a bag on my desk. I opened it. Sandwich, soup, a note you forgot to eat, I noticed. I did not know what to say. Elias, I said, I do not understand why you keep showing up. He sat in the student desk across from mine. It was too small for him. He did not seem to care. Because I spent 2 years searching for the person who wrote that proposal, he said. And when I found him, I realized I had been searching for the wrong thing. I thought I was looking for an idea. I was looking for a person. A person who grades essays at midnight. Yes, that person. I looked at him. He was not performing. He was not strategizing. He was sitting in a desk that was too small for him in an empty classroom because he had noticed that I had not eaten. The tea was hot. He had brought it. I held it. The warmth against my palms meant something I did not need to say. The Independent Foundation launched 6 months later. It was small. It was focused on underfunded schools, Omega and Beta students, teacher grants, and the children that no one else fought for. It was not glamorous. It did not make headlines. It changed lives. I kept teaching. I said I would keep teaching. Because the story's final truth was this: my value never came from wealth or status. It came from the lives I changed when nobody was watching. Elias understood that. He had always understood it. He came to my classroom every week. He sat in the back. He watched. He learned the names of my students. He asked them questions. He remembered their answers. One afternoon, Mira came to me after class. "Who is that man?" she asked. "A friend," I said. "He brings coffee." "Yes, he looks at you the way my father looks at my mother." I did not know how to answer that. "He also helped me get the scholarship for the writing program," she said. "So I guess he is okay," I smiled. "He is okay. The gala was a year ago. The reform proposal is fully funded. The foundation is running. The students who would have been invisible are being seen. And I am still a teacher. Tonight I will go home. The tea will be hot when I pour it because he makes it now. He learned my habit. I grade. He reads in the chair across from me. The silence is not empty. It is full. I am not invisible anymore. There is a question I have never answered out loud. The one from section 4 of the proposal. The one I wrote and rewrote 17 times until I got it right. What do we owe the child we will never meet? I have spent 12 years answering it, not in words, in action, in the nights I stayed late, in the supplies I bought with my own salary, in the students whose names I remember because no one else did. Tonight, I think I finally understand the answer. We owe them a world where invisible people do not have to stay hidden to be safe. We owe them a world where being seen is not a risk. We owe them teachers who stay. I looked at Elias across the desk. He was reading. He did not know I was watching. I turned back to my essays. The tea was warm. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. I found it in my school mailbox between a faculty memo about fire drill procedures and a handwritten note from Mira. She had been accepted to the writing program. Full scholarship. Her spelling was still imperfect. Her joy was not. The envelope was thick, cream-colored paper, no return address. My name in handwriting I did not recognize. I opened it in my classroom after the final bell. Inside was a single photograph. A child, maybe 7 years old, maybe 8, standing in front of a school I did not recognize. Red brick. A cracked playground. The child was smiling, missing front tooth, dark hair that fell across one eye. Behind the photograph was a letter. Dear Mr. Mercer, you do not know me. My name is Amara. I am 9 years old. I go to a school that used to have no books in the library. Then a program came. The program was based on something someone wrote. My teacher said the person who wrote it was a teacher too. I wanted to tell you that I have read all the books in the new library. I have read them twice. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. I want to help other children read. My teacher said I should write to you. She said you might not write back, but that I should write anyway. She said writing is how we make ourselves real. Thank you for the books. Amara, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer of my desk where I kept the things that mattered. That evening, I told Elias. We were at my apartment. He was making tea. He had learned to make it the way I liked it, strong, with a touch of honey, served in the mug I had carried from my first apartment. The mug was chipped. I did not care. A child wrote to me, I said. He looked up. What did she say? She said she read all the books in the library that the reform funding made possible. He was quiet, then he set down the kettle. Lucien, that is, I know. You wrote that proposal 4 years ago. You published it under a pseudonym. You did not expect anyone to read it. You did not expect it to change anything. I know. And a child in a school you have never visited wrote to tell you that she read every book. Yes, he walked over to where I was sitting. He did not touch me. He just stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. This is what I mean, he said, when I say you changed the world, not in the way that makes headlines, in the way that makes a 9-year-old believe she can be a teacher. I looked at the photograph. Amara, missing tooth, dark hair. Smiling at a camera held by someone who believed in her future. I want to show you something, I said. We drove the next Saturday, 3 hours east, past the suburbs, past the farmland, to a town that did not appear on most maps. The school was red brick, cracked playground, exactly as the photograph had shown. I had not told anyone we were coming. I had not called ahead. We walked into the front office. A woman looked up from her desk. She was a beta, maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain and a name tag that said Mrs. Chen, Administrative Assistant. Can I help you? I received a letter, I said, from a student, Amara. Mrs. Chen's face changed, not surprise, recognition. You are Lucien Mercer. Yes, she stood up. She walked around the desk. She looked at me for a long moment. Amara is in class right now, she said. I can call her out, but first I want to thank you. You do not have to. I do have to. Her voice was firm. Before your reform, this school had a library with 47 books. 47. For 300 students, most of them were donated. Most of them were damaged. Most of them were not appropriate for the age group. She paused. Now we have a full library. New books, a reading program, a teacher who stays after school to help students who are behind. Teachers who stay. The person who funded it, Mrs. Chen said, is here with you. I looked at Elias. He was standing near the door, hands in his pockets, watching. The foundation paid for the library, he said. But the library would not exist without the proposal, and the proposal would not exist without him. Mrs. Chen looked between us. She did not ask questions. "I will get Amara," she said. She came running, 9 years old, dark hair, missing front tooth. She stopped when she saw me, suddenly shy. "You are the teacher," she said. "I am the teacher. I wrote you a letter. I know, I read it 3 times. She grinned. The gap in her teeth was endearing. "I read all the books," she said. "I told you that, but I did not tell you that I wrote a story too. It is about a girl who finds a library in a forest. The books are alive. They talk to her. They tell her secrets." "That sounds like a wonderful story." "It is not finished yet. Stories do not have to be finished to be wonderful." She thought about that, then she nodded. "Will you read it?" she asked. "I would be honored." She ran back into the classroom and returned with a notebook. The pages were covered in crayon and pencil and the determined handwriting of a child who had something to say. I sat on the bench outside the office. She sat next to me. She read aloud. The story was about a girl named Alma, the same name I noticed. She found a library in the forest. The books told her about the world before she was born. About people who fought for things, about teachers who stayed, about children who learned to read because someone believed they could. When she finished, I did not speak for a moment. "Do you like it?" she asked. "I love it." "Really, really, you are a writer, Amara," she beamed. Elias came out of the office. He had been speaking with Mrs. Chen. He stopped when he saw us on the bench. "Amara," I said. "This is Elias. He helped build the library." She looked at him seriously. "Thank you for the books." "You are welcome," he said, "but the library would not exist without him." He nodded at me. "He wrote the plan that made it possible. He is the one who should be thanked." Amara turned back to me. She studied my face. "Are you an Omega?" she asked. "Yes. My teacher says Omegas can be anything they want." "She says you prove it." I did not know what to say. My throat was tight. "She is right," I said. Amara nodded. Then she hugged me, quick, fierce, before she ran back inside. I sat on the bench for a long time. On the drive home, I did not speak. Elias drove. He did not fill the silence. He let me sit with what had happened. The sun was setting. The fields were gold and green. Elias. "Yes." "There is something I have not told you." He waited. "When I wrote that proposal, I was alone. I was in my apartment. The tea was cold. No one knew what I was doing. No one cared. I wrote it because I could not stop writing it, because I believed that somewhere a child would read it, and I stopped." "A child did read it," he said. "Yes. That child hugged you today." "Yes, Lucien. That is not nothing." I looked at the window. The fields passed. The sky was turning pink. "I know," I said. "I think I am learning to believe it." The school became part of our lives. We visited every month. I read stories to Amara's class. Elias brought books. The foundation expanded the library program to 12 more schools. And slowly, quietly, I began to understand something I had never allowed myself to feel. My value was not in what I produced. It was not in the proposal. It was not in the partnership or the reputation or the recognition. It was in the children who learned to read because I stayed. One evening, 6 months after the gala, I was grading at my desk. Elias was in the chair across from me. He was reading a report from one of the new schools. The tea was hot. The room was quiet. He looked up. "I have been thinking," he said. "About what?" "About that question, the one from section 4 of your proposal. What do we owe the child we will never meet?" I set down my pen. And he was quiet for a moment. "I think the answer is we owe them our attention, not our performance, not our strategy, our attention. We owe them the willingness to see them even when no one else does." I looked at him. "That is the answer," I said. "Is it?" "Yes, that is exactly the answer." He smiled. "Small, real, good," he said. "Then I think we are doing it right. I have been a teacher for 12 years. I will be a teacher for 12 more, and then 12 after that. Because teaching is not something I do, it is something I am. The foundation runs without me now. Elias manages it. But I am still there, at board meetings, at budget discussions, at the moments when someone needs to remind them that behind every number is a child. And Elias is still there too. He comes to my classroom. He knows my students' names. He brings coffee. We have not marked each other. We have not bonded. We have not needed to, because the bond is not in the mark. It is in the late nights, in the hot tea, in the silence that is not empty, in the child who wrote a letter and the teacher who answered it. I still have the photograph of Amara. It is on my desk. Next to the chipped mug, I still have the letter. It is in the drawer with the other things that matter, and I still ask myself the question from section 4. What do we owe the child we will never meet? Tonight, I have an answer. We owe them the world we wanted for ourselves. The one where invisible people do not have to stay hidden, where being seen is not a risk, where teachers stay and children raid and the tea is always warm. We owe them a story worth telling. And then we owe them the silence to write their own. The classroom is empty now. The students have gone home. Elias is waiting in the hallway. He has brought tea. It is still hot. I put on my coat. I turn off the light. The door closes behind us. Tomorrow I will teach again. And a child somewhere will learn to read. That is enough. That has always been enough. There is a line in Amara's story that I think about often. The girl in the forest library armor finds a book that has no words, just blank pages. She is confused. She asks the librarian, a wise old owl, why the book is empty. The owl says, "That book is for you. Everyone has a story. This one is waiting for yours." I think about the children I will never meet, the ones whose stories have not been written yet, the ones who are waiting for someone to hand them a blank book and say, "This one is waiting for yours." That is what we owe them. A blank page, and the belief that they are worthy of filling it.